2000, we bought an abandoned 100-acre farm in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. We spent years cleaning it up, built a new house, and now are trying to make it a functional homestead farm. Welcome to Red Tool House.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Red Tool House. In this video, I want to continue our series on talking about things to consider before you start your homestead. Now we've gone through a whole list. I think we're over 10 points to consider. And if you want to see those, I've built a playlist and I'll link to it right here. But there's all kinds of things to consider before you homestead. One more thing I want to add to that list is, what are your considerations for what you're going to do on your homestead? So you may think, what's that mean? Well, I'm going to raise animals. I'm going to raise a lot of my own food. Okay, detail that. And if I could put a wrapper around this, I would say do as much as you can as quickly as possible. Now that may sound like complete opposite logic, but hear me out on this. If you're not familiar with animal husbandry, or you haven't raised a lot of annual plants, you've never put a garden in, or you've never worked with perennials, or you just want to stick your toe in the water of permaculture, there's all kinds of things wrapped around this homesteading element that man, I really want to do this. Well, don't be like me. Don't be on the land for 17 years and realize, man, I still haven't tried this. I always said I want to try this, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Look at your plans and say, how much can I do without, of course, driving myself crazy and wanting to hang myself by a rope in the barn? But what can I do to kind of stick my toe in the water, all this stuff? So I say do as much as you can, but do it on a small scale. So it doesn't mean, hey, I want to try pigs, so I'm going to go out and buy 15 hogs, and I want to have goats, so I'm going to get 15 goats, and I want to have chickens, so I'm going to get 100 chickens. And oh, by the way, I want to plant a garden, so I'm going to plow 2-acre plot, or I'm going to put in an orchard, so I'm going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars planting apple trees. Don't do any of that. But if you want to do all of that, try maybe a couple pigs, maybe a goat or two. Again, I wouldn't wish a goat on anybody. You goat lovers, you know what I'm talking about. If you want to get chickens, maybe less than a dozen chickens. If you want to start a garden, maybe start with a 10 by 10 before you go with a 2-acre by 2-acre plot there. Those are the type of things. And if you want to have an orchard, maybe plant a couple apple trees before you see what's going to eat them and what issues you're going to have. So I recommend when you sit down and do your plans, don't say, okay, this year I'm going to do one thing, next year I'm going to do another thing, next year I'm going to do another thing. While that's a good goal, I'd say maybe ramp that up a little bit. One thing that I heard talking about homesteading and farming that was kind of depressing, and it wasn't really meant to be depressing, but if you think about it, I'm 44 years old, so if I'm going to do this hopefully up to 65 and beyond, but let's just say the magic number of 65, then I've got 21, is that right? I've got roughly 21 years to do what I want to do on this homestead actively. So you think about it, when you look at all this stuff seasonally, that gives you 21 tries. And when you look at it in that situation, well, 21 tries to get something right or to improve on something really isn't a lot of tries, especially with some of the complexity of some of the things incorporated into homesteading. So while that may sound a little depressing, you'd say, well, let's combat that. Let's try multiple things. Now, again, you don't want to stress yourself out. You don't want to overcommit, but just make sure you don't undercommit to what you want to try. Don't be in a situation where you're like, wow, man, I'm ready to retire, and there's still this whole list of things I want to do. Again, retirement doesn't mean you're done. You can't homestead. There's a lot of people that are homesteading really hitting their stride at retirement. But don't look back and regret. Like I said, I wish the last 17 years I had started this stuff a lot sooner. If I had planted fruit trees when I first got this property, I'd have a 17-year-old orchard. If the deer didn't eat them, of course, or I didn't kill them somehow. But you can see that you don't live in hindsight and say, man, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have gone ahead and tried this, and those situations. So when planning your homestead, make a list of the things you want to do, but try to do as much as you can on a small scale, and be sure to budget for that. If you're going to have to put a budget out for the animals that you want, the plants you want to plant, the trees you want to plant, then just try to pencil those out and get an idea of your budget. You know, one thing I've discovered with putting up firewood, if you do it in the same spot every time, like I drag my logs down here and I cut them up usually. Sometimes I'll cut them in the woods, but usually I'll drag it all down here to one spot. You can see the proximity to the house. That's the house down there. Barn and everything's way down over the hill there. But just a nice flat spot here that I have. My main road on the north ridge comes right past here. The road coming up from the south side right here. So it's kind of a centralized location. I've got roads, kind of a three-way intersection here, and of course a path to the house. But the reason why I like doing this right here is not only for the proximity, but with this flat ground, you can see just where the past several years I've had wood in here, cutting and scrap and all those type of things. And you can see the sawdust where I cut that's been in here layer after layer. So winter after winter, you can just see this is just some great organic material here. So I could come up here with my tractor and scrape the top off of this, or even just use a small shovel to grab just a small amount of compost. But this is like a composting pile here with little input. So again, from a permaculture standpoint, if this was a good example of function stacking, dragging the wood down here to cut, and all of the debris, all the leftovers, like this sawdust here, all those small bits of bark and leaves that collect, all of those are composting here. You can see where the grass has grown up, even grows up around it. So when that dies off in the winter time, in the fall, then we get some of that nitrogen in there to go with all this carbon. So it's good stuff. It makes sense to have a centralized location to do this, not only for convenience of access to your wood, but you have all this debris, all this leftover just building up and making good soil for you underneath your firewood pile. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Red Tool House Farm. And again, come back, because each week we release 3 videos, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care.